Hey there, my name is Steve and welcome to DIY Home 360. This channel is focused on really finding the best DIY home projects to improve your home, to get the best bang for your buck, to make sure you find the best tools that are going to be reliable and last you a lifetime, so that way you can do better projects quicker and make sure that the tools are not going to fail you. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about 5 different tools that every homeowner should own for projects you're going to be doing around the house. And these are really 5 tools that I'm using every single day that I'm working on projects at home. The first tool up, and really the tool that I use the most, is going to be a cordless drill. So if you don't have one of these already, I highly recommend getting them. They're going to be useful for a multitude of projects, for drilling holes in the wall when it comes to hanging paintings or doing things that require you to hang something on the wall. They're also good for driving screws that are in more difficult surfaces. And really, the one that I have here is the Milwaukee Fuel, the M12 line. And I really recommend this one because it's really handy. It has a long battery life. You can actually, on the bottom here, pop out the battery, and they have different types of batteries that are longer lasting. And I found them to last all of the projects I've been working on for a long period of time. The most important thing I will say if you consider getting a cordless drill is just make sure that it's brushless. That's something that a lot of new DIYers or homeowners don't really know what that means. And so in a nutshell, if you have a brushless motor, that's basically reducing the actual friction that's actually happening inside of the drill itself. And it's going to help it to last longer, produce less heat. And overall, I noticed that I get more torque and usability out of the drills that are brushless. Now, Milwaukee's a little bit more on the pricey side, but I really love the way they craft their tools. They're very ergodynamic. They function very well. They have a lot of torque. So that's exactly what I need for the projects I'm working on. From small things like hanging up paintings to actually finishing your basement, these tools allow flexibility. And on the top here, as you can see, you can actually rotate the motor speed to make sure that you're not using too much torque on something small. I'll put a link down to the specific drill down below, but there's also a couple other ones I recommend, which are going to be DeWalt and Ryobi, that have their own line of drills. So I'll put those down on the bottom as well. Now, if you have a cordless drill, the next thing you're going to want to make sure you have, and this is kind of like a bonus tip, is make sure that you have a good amount of bits that you can use. So things like Phillips heads, Allen wrench heads, there's different types of heads that you can have here, and they allow you to quickly change them out, because what happens is that these drills have a cordless chuck, so when you hold it and unscrew, you can quickly pop it out, put the new one in, and then when you hold it, as you probably know, you can secure it right back into the drill. So that allows you to quickly change out heads very fast. And the flexibility here is great because you can go from drilling in a screw to drilling through the wall, whatever you need that's going to accommodate your needs. Now, the second tool I recommend here is a laser level. And this is something that really helped me when it came to doing a lot of DIY projects, because when you hang up photos or paintings or whatever it might be, there's various ways to do it. And there's different tricks and tips that can help you to do that. Now, the best thing about a level, of course, is that it makes sure that where you're putting the nails, it's exactly level, like the name implies. So that way you won't have a lopsided painting or a photo on the wall. So this one's called HuPar. I didn't really know too much about it, but when I actually bought it and started using it, I actually fell in love with it pretty quickly. So one cool thing about it is that you can actually unlock it, and what it does is that whatever surface it's on, whether it's tilted or whatnot, it'll basically allow you to line it up. It free floats the levels to make sure that they are adapting to the surface that you're on. And if it's tilted like this or not really plush, what's going to happen is that it'll start blinking like this, so you know that the surface you're on is not truly even. So if you go like this, for example, it'll finally be able to adjust and find that right height for you and make sure everything is level, which it was really awesome. On top of that, it has a rechargeable battery. I believe it's a USB-C or micro USB, but really simple to charge. You just pop it in there, come back the next hour or so, and then it's fully charged, which is great. And one other thing that's really great too is that you have the ability to mount it onto something. So for example, I have this little tripod here, so I can screw this on. And what that allows me to do is now I have an adjustable height that I can use. So if I'm hanging a painting that's really high up on the wall, I can find the perfect height for it. Or if something's a little bit lower, like chest height, I don't have to be searching around to put it on something that's my chest height or higher. It allows me to adjust that, which is really, really useful. Next up is the handy dandy hammer. So hammers are pretty straightforward. Most people know what a hammer is, but there's a couple different things that are important in terms of buying a hammer. So the first one is the actual front face of the hammer. Some of them have like a sort of waffle design, and those are good for getting better grip on the nail and making sure that it doesn't slide when you hit it. But the problem is if you hit something too hard, you'll then indent that face into whatever you're hitting. So I prefer having a smoother head and just practicing with your hits. That way you get a better accuracy with it. Next up is the claw. So as you can see on this claw, this one's a little bit more curved. Some of them, like framing hammers, might be a little bit more flat, so it gives a little bit more leverage when you're prying things. But these are really simple and useful for being able to pry out nails for most projects. So if you have a nail that's kind of crooked or whatever, you just pop that bad boy on there and pop it out. So this claw gives a little bit more, I would say, room to kind of get into that nail and pop it out. Another thing too, is just keep in mind the actual handle that you're using on your hammer. Some of them are wood, fiberglass, metal. So I don't necessarily recommend wood handles, because if you hit something too hard over time, it might split. So there's various ones like fiberglass or metal. So those are good options. Metal might be a little bit more heavy, so fiberglass is a good medium between durability and strength, and also being lightweight. So this one that I have here is a 20-ounce hammer. I'd recommend keeping between 16 to 20 ounces for the hammer, as they'll be able to do most projects that you're going to be working on. And this brand I have here is Husky. This has lasted me for many years and is very reliable, so highly recommend this brand and this hammer. Next up is measuring tape. So there's a lot of different measuring tapes out on the market. They have ones that are as long as 25 feet. Some are really shorter, like 10 feet or so. I would say that for most projects, you're going to want to have more than less, and there's various ones that have different features on here. So this one, for example, is magnetic, which is useful because if I stick it to something that's metal, it'll allow me to kind of go across the room and measure, what I need to do. So the reason I recommend 25 is because as you get more experience with the projects that you're working on, you're going to want to move up in terms of like what you're able to do. So if you only have 10 feet, that might limit you on what you're able to do. Again, the 10-foot one's going to be smaller because there's a smaller spool inside of here. But I would recommend getting a 25-foot one. That's one that most people use out in the field and for working on different projects. So they're very reliable. And I have a Milwaukee one mostly because of the fact that it has the magnetic end here that allows me to grip onto something a little bit better. Just make sure that the one that you have doesn't need to be magnetic, but make sure it has like a nice hook here, so that way you can hook it onto something and pull from there. If it's too short or flimsy, then you're going to have issues with actually being able to hook onto something. You also want to make sure that you test it out to make sure that when you extend it, it doesn't break easily. Like you can see like some brands, for example, like you might go out like maybe only 2 feet and then it'll just snap like that. And then that becomes kind of annoying to be wrestling with that, trying to figure it out and get it back. But this one can go out to like even 8 feet plus, I think, and it won't even have an issue with, snapping in half. So that's something to consider as well. Again, I recommend Milwaukee or DeWalt for this. I've not had any problems with Milwaukee or DeWalt for most of their tools or things like this, like the measuring tape. All right, and the fifth tool that I would say is a socket wrench. Now this is something that, depending on the projects you're working on, can be extremely helpful. I think that anytime I'm working on a project that I could have used a socket wrench where I didn't have one, I always regret not having a socket wrench. This has a multitude of uses, right? So for example, if you put a 10mm socket on there, you could use it for your car, tweaking things in your car. Then of course, for building furniture, if you buy furniture from IKEA or you buy different types of products from Amazon that are kind of collapsed and you have to build it out, a lot of times it's going to require either an Allen key or a wrench. So having this sort of wrench will really help to speed up the process. Of course, it just feels so great to be able to, stick this on there and then tweak, 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 and it's just so easy to get it done quickly. As well as I had an outdoor play set for my daughter that required a bunch of different nuts that I had to twist on there. So this really came in handy for that. And also, because it's so small and round, it allows you to kind of get into awkward angles to be able to twist something, versus with a wrench, it might be more difficult to get in there. So a socket wrench is really a useful tool whenever you're working with nuts. One more bonus tip, I know I mentioned 5, but just wanted to give one more here. If you don't have a utility knife, I recommend getting one, especially the ones with the interchangeable blades. I think most of them have this nowadays, but it makes it really simple to swap out a blade in case one gets a little bit rusty or beat up. And so really the main thing I use this for is right now for cutting up boxes. I order a lot of stuff from Amazon, Costco, all over the place. And after I'm done with, getting the products out of the boxes, you have a mountain of boxes to kind of go through to get to recycling. So by chopping them up with a utility knife, it makes it so much easier to get through big piles of cardboard boxes. Now, of course, besides that, there's other uses for it depending on how handy you are. So for example, if you're working on installing wallpaper, for example, you can use this to help cut along the wallpaper to make a nice clean cut. If you're ripping up carpet or installing carpet, you can use this to kind of cut up the carpet and get around that and be very precise with the actual cuts you're making. So It really depends on your skill level, but there's a multitude of uses for this. But being a homeowner, getting a lot of new things into the house with a bunch of boxes and whatnot, this really made a difference in breaking down that pile and making it a lot more manageable. So those are my tools. I hope you enjoyed this video. As I mentioned, this is a brand new channel. I have a blog I'm basically trying to build out as well. The premise here is that I don't have a background in plumbing, being an electrician, being a construction worker. I'm just an everyday dad that has an interest in making improvements to my home and really getting the best bang for my buck in terms of the tools I buy and making sure that I'm able to give this information to you guys. So this is just the beginning, but if you want to help support this journey as I grow, please be sure to subscribe and comment. Let me know what you want to see. Let me know what you liked about the video, what can be better. All this is really helpful because I want to make sure that I'm able to provide useful content for you guys in the future. On top of that, I also want to do product reviews. There's so many products out there on Amazon that have 5 stars that I bought that just suck. So I want to review products that are really worth the money and those that are not. So I'll be trying to give some information on that as well. Either way, thank you again for watching and I hope you enjoyed. Please be sure to leave a thumbs up. Thank you.